Yeah,
Okay, thanks. And are you okay if we record your presentation?
that's just fine. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'll go ahead and let you share your screen and take it away. Thank you.
Okay, let me see if I can figure this out here. I think I've got it. If you can see my, you should be able to see the
Yep,
slideshow now. Yep.
we
Okay.
can see it now. Yep.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Couple things before I start. I'm going to leave my video off sometimes when I share my screen on Zoom and have my video on. I start to get some connectivity issues. And another disclaimer here, it's entirely possible that my dogs start to make a ruckus. These are the joys of working from home nowadays for me. So just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
All right. Thank you. No problem. I totally understand that.
All right. So again, my name is Lisa. I have been working with LSS for coming up on 8 years now here in April. First with our volunteer companion services and now with our 30-day hospital readmission prevention service. I kind of oversee evaluation for our lines of services, and I'm actually a national rest trainer. So I can train in the companion train. I can train basically at all levels. And before that, I worked for about 15 years with adults with developmental disabilities. And I just wanted to kind of set the table here, just to kind of provide a little context as to why I really fell in love with this training. I kind of came into REST by accident, actually. My senior director several years ago couldn't make it to the Train the Trainer event that was going to be held the next day. And so she asked me if I wanted to go in her place. And I was like, yeah, sure. No idea what it even was, no idea what it stood for, but I'm kind of a yes person. So yeah, I'll go ahead and do that. But I will tell you, after those 2 days of training, I fell in love with it. I saw the value from day one and still do. Like, it's been 4 or 5 years. So I'm just so happy to be here today to kind of share with you about the REST training and really how it can be applied in your services or all of our services. Oh, having a little bit of trouble. Let's see if this will work. Okay, there we go. So what we'll go over today, just go over what the heck is REST, and talk about some of the Minnesota customizations and the partnership with the Minnesota Board on Aging with REST. And really, how can we put this to use? We'll talk a little bit about some data and some impact stories, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions afterwards. Excuse me. So what is REST? It stands for Respite, Education, and Support Tools. Kind of the inspiration for this was a guy named Joel Thompson. And he grew up, his mom had a massive stroke when she was giving birth to twins. And his dad, working full time, raising 4 kids and being the primary caregiver for his mom, and then just trying to make it in life in general, really sparked the creation of this training, because his dad made so many personal sacrifices for his family. And Joel just really saw how his dad would have benefited from a break, from some respite. So in partnership with Markland, which is an organization in Illinois, and that's an organization that supports kids with disabilities, this training was created. I think that Joel's story is a story that's really familiar to all of us here, either in our personal or our professional lives. So I think it fits really well. This is a nationwide evidence-based training curriculum, and it's really meant to create a network of supports for caregivers. So this is done by training volunteers or family members, and even paid workers to provide quality and trustworthy respite care. So it's done through an 8-hour class, and that's divided into 5 different categories with 10 core competencies. The curriculum can really be applied to all ages and abilities. In Minnesota, we have a large focus on older adults with a special focus even further on individuals with memory loss. But really, there's a lot of information in the training working with kids and adults with disabilities too. And the training is customizable to meet the audience that's being trained. So that's a really cool part of it. The 10 core competencies that are in the training really shouldn't be customized because that then affects the integrity of the evidence-based classification. But those are generally things that you really wouldn't want to change anyway. We'll kind of get into that a little bit. So just here's the agenda for the course, and this just really lays out kind of what we go over. So there, excuse me, we have prepare, care, connect, forms, and references. And kind of what you'll hear all the time throughout REST is that effective respite requires effective preparation, attentive care, and authentic connection. And this goes for both the care receiver and the caregiver for whom you would be providing respite. And these things are just taught over and over throughout the course. There's a review or kind of a short test afterwards that really can just ensure that the attendees can grasp the 10 core competencies. You know, if you look at this, you can see it's kind of a lot to cover in a one-day companion training, but the training itself is really fun and really interactive. A lot of activities, a lot of class discussion. It's really meant for everyone. You can be someone who's had no experience providing respite to someone who's been providing it for years and years. So I've had a lot of my senior companions when I worked with that program. I had a lot of them who had been visiting 4 to 5 people each week for 5 and 10 and even 15 years. But also those who've been in service for just a month or two. So really kind of, excuse me, I got to see how it affected just new people as well as people who've been doing this for years. I had a volunteer that was with us for 15 years. She was even a volunteer lead. So she did match meetings and some of our trainings and things like that. And she had 5 people she saw each week. So she was really seasoned in doing this kind of volunteer work. And she took the training and she said she was so thankful to have the understanding that what she's been doing for all these years was right. You know, it just made her feel a little bit more confident. And as she was leaving, though, she did say, so this dog did learn new tricks. So it was good for her, you know, that she learned some new things, but really just felt a lot more confident in what she has been doing. And the best trainings in my experiences are a mixture of people who are really experienced and those who don't have a lot of experience, because they really can teach each other a lot. The new folks with the questions they might ask, where the people who've been doing it for a long time don't necessarily think of those things anymore. And then the folks who've been doing, you know, respite for a long time can really provide a lot of context, a lot of personal stories. And I can tell you that after every single class that I have done, I've come out of there learning something new every single time without fail. Excuse me. What one part I think is really neat about the training is that it's led through the perspective of the caregiver, the care receiver, and their families. These vignettes are kind of shown throughout and really set the table for what's about to be taught or presented in the training. And I think it's really good to kind of bring people back to the reason that they're there. And that's for the caregiver, the care receiver, and their families. And then throughout, there's videos to watch and a lot of activities and a lot of discussion, as I mentioned before. It's not a training where you're going to go sit in a room for 8 hours and get lectured at. That's not what we do. Excuse me. And there's a couple different levels here of the trainings that we can do. Let's see, we have the REST companion training, and that's the most common training. That's where we're going to train individuals to go provide respite. They can learn how to build, how to prepare for a respite visit, how to build that trusting relationship with the care receiver and the caregiver, and excuse me. And then activities, what drives behaviors, person first language, why do we use that, how do we use that? And then it just goes into a lot of different things that might come up in a respite visit and how to handle those. This can be used for paid respite providers as well. It really can help them develop those soft skills that are necessary to build the trust and relationship. It's really great, again, all around for people of all experience levels. Then we've got the Train the Trainer course. And this is a 2-day course, and I have actually broken this one down to 4-hour courses that can be done virtually. And again, this is great for beginners as well as seasoned trainers. It really focuses on a lot of the adult learning techniques, tips and tricks for preparing for a class and for facilitating the actual training. We talk about how to get people to interact, how to maybe handle people who might be difficult in the class, and a little bit even about how to handle some of the technical aspects. You know, I'm no IT person, and I even had a little bit of trouble sharing my screen this morning. And we kind of just talk about how to handle those things because it's going to come up. And then we have the master trainer level, and that's for someone who wishes to teach the train the trainer classes. And so there are only, I think, 5 national trainers in the country. 2 of them are the authors of the curriculum. And then there's 2 ladies in New York and me who can provide that master trainer level class. And that, again, is a 2-day, 8-hour class.
Lisa, did you say the companion class is 1 8-hour day?
It is. Yeah.
Thank you.
Up to 8 hours, I will say. I cut it down to about 6 hours for a lot of my trainings because there are things in the training that are not core competencies that I cut out for my volunteers at LSS specifically, because it goes into things like positioning and transfers, first aid, things that I don't want my volunteers doing, and I don't want there to be any confusion. So 6 to 8 hours, I would say. Excuse me. So this curriculum is really customizable. When you do the Train the Trainer course, you know, to get ready to train that companion course, you add your personal stories. So in the training, you even take time to kind of jot down some ideas, because Rust really understood that when you use your own personal stories, it's going to be a lot more engaging than if you share someone else's stories or experience, you know. It just makes it more personal and just more engaging. And then there are places throughout the training that have place marks for paperwork or policies from your own organization. So they want you to actually include your policies and practices, your contact information, your own paperwork, contacts for people in the state, and those types of things. And then we've got this Minnesota customization. So this course was originally designed primarily for people with disabilities in mind, because that's what Markland, the organization that created this, their focus is kids with disabilities. But really, it can be used for older adults the way it is originally set. However, Minnesota really found a need for training for people working with adults with memory loss. And excuse me, so the authors of the curriculum worked closely with the Minnesota Board on Aging to create a customization to really fit these needs. And the customization has really great materials throughout on what drives behavior, how to communicate, and really how to adapt activities for folks with memory loss. It's a really great training for that. And to be really honest, the class that you have will customize the curriculum a little bit to what they need by asking their questions and sharing their stories and experiences. So that's a fun part of it always for me. So Minnesota really is a leader in the REST curriculum. It was seen as so valuable by the Minnesota Board on Aging that they included it in their state plan for 2019 through 2022. Excuse me. And so through a lot of grants, a lot of this was paid for. And the MBA also supports REST efforts by providing a lot of the materials for free. So they have a stash of participant guides and other materials that are kind of needed to hold these trainings, and you can just contact them. And to be really honest, Clancy Ferris used to oversee that part. And I know she's gotten a new job within, I don't know if it's Minnesota Board on Aging or DHS, but so I don't know who is overseeing that right now. I can find that information though, if there are any trainers in this group currently.
That would be, I believe, Catherine Engstrom is filling in for Clancy right now.
Okay.
Clancy reports directly to the director of Minnesota Board on Aging.
Okay, sure.
So, but Catherine Engstrom, I'm not sure how familiar she is with this, but that would be the MBA contact.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, and so they'll have some of these materials if there are any trainers in the group. Yeah. But so they brought in 2018, they brought two of the authors of REST to come out to Minnesota to do a Train the Trainer event. They did one, I think, in the spring and then one in November. And Melissa Grimmer, who works, she's a program director here at LSS. And I went to that training class. And then the MBA after that decided they wanted to have a few master trainers because they really had plans to grow this program in the state. So they chose 3 of us to go to Chicago to become master trainers. And excuse me, after that, the MBA decided that they wanted a national trainer. So someone who could train more master trainers, both in the state and around the country. And so I don't know how, but I got chosen as one of those folks. And so now we have people in our state who can train at all levels. We have something over like 50 trainers in the state, though, companion trainers. So it is something that it's pretty widespread. But there's so much room for more, because this class can help do so much. It helps all the time. Every class I've had, you see people, the light bulb goes off and they recognize that they've been a caregiver. So it even helps in that aspect to people identify as a caregiver, either now or at some other time in their life. So how do we use this? Excuse me. There's just a lot of really practical uses for REST. Really, it's just how to build that trusting relationship. And we haven't been able to fully integrate REST into our services at LSS the way we wanted to. This little COVID thing kind of got in the way of a lot of our plans, and we were just trying to, stay above water like everyone else for a good portion of that. But I will say, before COVID hit, I had done probably, I think 10 REST trainings throughout the state. So from Rochester to International Falls and anywhere in between, I've been to do these trainings, and just to really help help build this network of qualified respite providers. Yeah.
Lisa, I have several providers texted me and contact me through chat directly that are interested in the Train the Trainer piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that's something that you could offer?
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is. I will be doing one in May with Michigan.
Okay.
So anytime after that, I'd be happy to provide one here in Minnesota.
Is it virtual or in person?
Yes, I can do both.
You can do both? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I'm sorry, one more question before I let you finish.
Yeah.
We'll continue on here. What is the cost to be to take the Train the Trainer class?
Mm-hmm. Well, I might have to get back to you on that. I don't have my
That's
fee
fine.
schedule up, but I think, you know, I'm not going to answer it just because I would be guessing.
No, that's fine.
Because and the only reason I say that is there is a difference in price between our virtual and in-person options.
Totally understand that. Yeah, that's no problem.
Yeah, I can throw it in the chat a little later though.
Sure, and I'll just get more information from you, and then I can share with the entire group about, maybe we can work together and set up something, a training.
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay, thank you.
That. Yeah. Excuse me. But yeah, so if you think about who can really use this to become a companion, a rest companion, right? A rest trained companion. And that would be family, friends, family members of people, you know, who are caregivers, neighbors, volunteers. We've done a lot of work with churches through LSS, and even having high school kids kind of go through this course to be able to provide respite to the older adult congregants. This is great for home health aides, for CNAs, for folks who are in hospice and palliative care, and colleges and universities, because this is a great opportunity for service learning. So there's a lot of uses for rest. Excuse me. So by the numbers, since the inception of REST, there are over 500 trainers in 29 states and Canada. Again, there are over 50 trainers in Minnesota. I don't know. I mean, I know not all of them are actively training, but there are over 50 in the state, and room for so many more. We have 3 master trainers here and the 1 national trainer. And LSS has 4 rest companion trainers, and we have 2 master trainers too, that can do this. And what was it? It was over 5,500 people. The most recent update I could find was 2016. So between 2013 and 2016, there were 5,500 companions trained in rest. So that's a pretty huge number. And I think that has to be exponentially larger now by this point. So some of the feedback from my specific trainings, because I have all of my paperwork from, you know, the pre and post evaluation and then the core competency evaluation. About 97% of the individuals who have done our trainings have been able to score 80% or higher on the core competency review. So that just really shows that they're getting kind of what we're throwing at them, right? Like they're understanding the materials. And I think it's because the training is so interactive. There's really not a lot of opportunity for someone's eyes to glaze over, because you're up and moving, you're talking, you're sharing, and so I think that's great. And then 95% of the participants that we've had attend our trainings have reported feeling more confident in their ability to provide respite. And these stories right here will be a little bit more anecdotal. I've had people, a lot of people who've come to my classes to say, I didn't even know what respite meant. I didn't know that word. And again, like I've said, a lot of people have identified as caregivers, and to the point where it can almost get emotional. We have a section about self-care. And in that section, that's where a lot of the times I'll see the light bulb go off, because people will say, I needed a breath. And now I want to be able to give somebody the opportunity to do that. It's just a really cool experience in that respect. Excuse me. So how can rest help? I took this opportunity to throw up some of my volunteers that have taken the course. So we've got 3 of my volunteers with the clients that they serve. But what I want to say here, I want to tell a story of excuse me, a lady who had come to a training in April of 18. But first, I'll just kind of talk about, a lot of our volunteers come to serve as senior companions because they've had that experience caregiving for a loved one, right? And so they truly just understand that need for respite. They get that there is a need for a break, to reset and refill energy, right? So this is a way that they think, they see that they can pay it forward. So Jan, who was one of my volunteers for 7 years, um, and she served several clients faithfully each week, and all of whom had kind of big medical needs or memory loss. And so she came to the companion training in April of 2018 to just kind of bolster the skills that she already has, and kind of enhance the skills she has. Um, she paid attention throughout the course, and she was just really active in her participation. Um, but again, this goes back to what I was just talking about with the self-care. When we got to that section, um, I noticed her visually tense up, like her shoulders went up to her ears. Um, and her face, she was holding that tension in her face. And so I noticed that and I thought, okay, I'm going to just spend a little extra time here because I think she's going to need a little bit, of time to release this. And she finally asked if she could share her experience, and I was more than happy to hear it. And she had been a caregiver for her husband who had a terminal illness for several years. And she talked about how exhausting it was, both physically and mentally. Um, she she said it providing that respite, providing that caregiving was just the way she showed her love for her husband. And so at the time, she didn't identify as a caregiver, and she really couldn't identify that she needed a break. And in fact, her husband had died about 3 years before this training. And this was the first time she identified as a caregiver. I mean, I think that's just pretty incredible. It just shows us how much people need help to make that identification, right? Um, so she shared how if she had respite, she had someone who could come in and just let her go to lunch with her girlfriends. If she had someone who could come in and just let her go shopping, and do the simple things that she felt if she was doing, she was kind of shirking her duties as a wife. But she said now that she thinks about it, her life would have been better, and she thinks her husband's life would have been better. Um, and when she said that last part, she really teared up, and I think it was a hard realization, but I also think that she felt so happy that she could be doing this for people and providing that break for people who were in the same position that she was. Um, she said that the training was so relevant, and she wished that her loved ones could have gone through a class like this so that they could have understood how much stress caregiving actually is and what a gift respite is for caregivers. She also said that she thought it would have given herself more confidence to leave her husband with family members or, neighbors, friends, things like that, because she would have known they had, you know, some baseline or some foundation of skills. So even with all of this experience, though, Jan left the training saying, I learned so much today and I feel re-energized and ready to serve in a new way. So I just like to point that out because it's somebody who has so much experience, both personally and within her volunteer work. And this class was really significant for her. So, excuse me. And I've also had someone who was a volunteer for about 2 months in the class. And prior to taking this course, she said, I don't want to provide respite. And so I said, okay, we won't have you doing that. After the class, she said, oh, that's what respite is. I'll do that. Like she just didn't know. It sounds like a scary word. It's really technical. And it sounds like you could be providing care for somebody who has a lot of Like you would have to be doing personal cares and things like that. Like people don't understand that it could just be spending time doing something that, the care receiver loves to do while the caregiver can get out. So that was really helpful. So really, I'm sorry, I think this presentation is a lot shorter than it was meant to be. I just wanted to talk about the things in the class. If you want to, you can reach out to any of our trainers. I have information here, and I can put a screenshot in the chat or something. And
And
then
we'll have this recording, and maybe if you wouldn't mind, is it possible to share your presentation?
Yeah,
If you want to send it to me, then I'll send it out with Mark's and
Yeah.
Anne's as well.
Yeah, no problem.
Does anyone have any questions? Thank you so much, Lisa.
Yeah.
Please feel free to unmute yourself. I said, I know there's been a few providers comments in the chats or texting me, and I think I did a short version of the rest at Age Odyssey one year. And I do love that it's very customizable, where you mentioned your respite volunteers, don't do lifts, they don't do transfers, that type of thing. And I really like that you can customize and take that out. But Connie, I see that you're unmuted. Did you have a question?
Yeah, so I just wanted to reiterate what you just said, is that when Laurel was trained as a train the trainer, way back when this very first started, she had to go to Minneapolis, and we did have one session, but she had to get like special permission to take out portions of it because it didn't really go with what our respite program is. But as I'm listening to this and going through this, man, it would be great to be able to offer, even to have you come and talk to, like, we maintain a list of potential 24-hour caregivers who do a lot of paid respite, as well as some of our volunteers and some of our caregivers, like you say, that don't even recognize that what they're doing is caregiving. And I agree with you 100% when you said that the word respite really means nothing to a lot of people. I mean, it's a big, scary word. We've started calling, even though our program is respite, we call it friendly visiting.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if your loved one had their own special visitor, their friend that would come, and then you could go buy groceries or take a nap or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
You can see, it sounds to me with your presentation that it's changed a lot, as far as, because when Laurel did it, it was more of, I'm going to talk and you're going to listen type thing. And we lost a lot of people.
Yeah.
I like what you're saying about being more interactive, and we're always looking for respite training specifically. Jill, my caregiver support coach, and I've talked a lot about that this last year. So I'm interested to see your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so a couple things, with I will say, yes, the training used to be a lot more strict. But what happened was REST used to be its own kind of entity within this Markland organization, and it is no longer. And so a lot of, so a lot of their kind of control over the training is not as strict. And I've done a lot of playing with the training myself, and in over the years that I've done it, and I've worked with Clancy to make sure that it is, meets kind of what the Minnesota Board on Aging wants. And then I went back to Lois Schaefer, who is kind of one of the authors of REST, and talked with her about this, and just said, this is what I think would meet the needs best of the people that, I support. And so can I make these changes? And she was more than fine with it. And so I do think that, and for a long time, they were kind of under a little bit more pressure, because it was going under that research to become evidence-based. But that's where they determined, okay, there's these 10 core competencies we really shouldn't touch, because those are what makes it evidence-based. But then we have things like the things that you don't want your volunteers doing, and that it really can get confusing. The role confusion can be I just think there are parts of it that give just enough information to be dangerous rather than helpful. So let's just get rid of those, right? But I like that we have the option to use those for, for paid respite providers.
And also for you, those providers that are currently funded with 3E and are currently funded for respite, this also can go and be expensed through your grant as well. And so, or if you don't think it's going to happen this year and you want to look at it for next year, when the RFP comes out for 2023, just keep that in mind that you can include that as part of your grant that can be expensed.
That's what I was hoping you were going to say, because
Yeah.
it's already taken me to 2023. 2022 is pretty full already, but man,
Yep.
wouldn't it be great to get somebody trained early in the year next year, or to get a plan to have her come and do a day-long training for our community. That would be awesome.
Yep. Sounds good. Are there any other questions?
Is this appropriate at all for like just regular caregivers? Could they benefit from something like this if they're new caregivers or struggling at caregiving?
I think so. And again, what I've seen is just the identification of being a caregiver is huge in the classes that I've had. I think another way this could be helpful is that it helps people to understand that they can take a break, which is a big deal that I think a lot of people don't always understand. And I think the other thing it can do is help people understand that there could be people who are prepared to give you a break, who can come in and understand what their role really is as a respite provider. So yeah, I think it could be.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
We are done a little early.